Yeah, I thought this might be the only picture you'd get all day.
Who is that?
It's our hero for the day. Here you could, of course, he's holding the scripture, greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. And I don't think I'm giving anything away by saying that is ultimately what Kolbe did. But if you don't know his story, I think you will be fascinated by everything he did before that. And we have mentioned in studying our apologetic lives, the lives of people who, without writing great theology or logical arguments about why we should believe, simply through what they do, give us reason to believe. And Kolbe certainly fits that. There he is. He is known as the Saint of Auschwitz because that is where he met his death. If you are looking at the icon, and I could see the question is being asked, he has a triangle, not the Star of David. He's not Jewish, he's Catholic. The icon shows him with a P. That means Polish laborer. If you go to Auschwitz, you'll see a whole display of the different patches that they had to wear. His on the icon is a P. There he is. We're going to go through just his chronology so you can get the setting for everything that comes. He's born in 1894, and like our father Damien last week was not originally named Damien. He is not originally named Maximilian. He's named Raymond. Okay. And he enters preparation for the priesthood in, 1910, yes. And he is from Poland, and he takes the name Friar Maximilian. Earns his PhD in philosophy from university in Rome. He is 21 years old. He is very smart. In 1917, and we're going to see more about this. Each of these we will get more in depth with. He founds the Knights of the Immaculata with 6 brothers. It is an organization within the Catholic Church meant to defend the Catholic faith. We will see specifically it is inspired by the slanderous comments and activities of the Freemasons. So he's going to found this order, and I had 2 of my students over for ex-students, now almost finishing college, over to the house the other night. One is a Catholic and asked what I was teaching about. And I told him, oh, he's the founder of the Knights of the Immaculata. I said, well, yes, he is. And so this young man was well aware of that. He earns another PhD, this in theology, and he heads for Krakow. And he teaches church history there. In 1927, land is donated outside of Warsaw. He is going to literally and truly build a city of the Immaculata. The Immaculate, as you probably know, in Catholic theology, the Immaculate Conception is not the conception of Jesus, but of Mary. She is believed to be sinless and always to have been sinless. And so he names this city Niepokalanów, which literally means the property of Mary. Now, my friend Coco is my friend Coco. Here she is. We're going to come back to this where you'll get, but she's going to tell us a little bit. He goes to Nagasaki because he wants to, you don't have to, you just get warmed up. It'll be a few minutes. He goes to Nagasaki because he wants to build another Niepokalanów, but this one in Japan. And he's going to go to India because he wants to build another city there after the same model. And we're going to see, and Coco is going to tell us a little more, that where he decides to put his facility in Nagasaki is in a place which will not be damaged by the atomic bomb in 1945. He comes back to Poland to manage the city, and this is kind of coming toward the end of his story, and we're going to go detail by detail on this. He is arrested in 1939. He is released. He's saying things in his newspaper. Not only is he a city planner, but we're going to find out he's also way ahead of his time in terms of technology. He has his own printing facility and his own broadcasting network. And he says things about the Nazis that they don't like.
I'm sorry, what country is he living in?
Poland.
Okay.
He is Polish. He's arrested again and then transferred to Auschwitz.
When was Poland invaded?
1939, September 1st.
So, okay, so he got arrested within 3 weeks.
Yep. Yeah, they didn't like Catholics. They didn't like ministers any more than they liked Jews. He didn't like being invaded. So, okay. This is a fellow, and I'm not going to tell you the end of his story yet, but he volunteers to take the place of Gajanacek, where 10 people have been put to starve to death. He is still alive after 2 weeks and is injected with carbolic acid to finish. This is a picture of the guy whose place he took. And then his body is burned at Auschwitz. Okay, that's the overall picture. Let's go back. We have to get him canonized first. He's beatified, the first step in becoming a saint by Pope Paul VI. Then he is canonized by John Paul II. What is the connection there? They're both Polish. The guy whose life he saved lived until 1995, and it took his sacrifice took place in 1941. Guess what this guy talked about for over 40 years? Now, if you have anybody been to Westminster Abbey in the last 30 years, right by the big gift shop, there was a whole niche over that door, a series of niches that had not been filled with statues of ancient kings and queens and saints. And so they put in statues of 12 20th century martyrs at Westminster Abbey, and that is his statue over the Westminster Abbey's great west door. All right, let's back up.
Okay.
Yeah, why not? He was actually born a subject of the Tsar because, as you probably know, Poland is kind of like a ping pong ball. It's between Russia and Germany, and sometimes the Russians are there, sometimes the Germans are there, and thank goodness now it is just the Poles who are there. But yeah, when he's born, they're part of Russia. He is the second of 5 sons, 2 of whom died in infancy. The family was poor. They worked as weavers, doing piecework. They were fiercely Catholic, which is true of most of Poland still. The rallying point of Polish patriots and religious fervor was the shrine to the Virgin Mary, frequently hailed as Queen of Poland at Czeszkowa, to which the devout Kolbes pilgrimaged many times. Thus, from the beginning of his life, Kolbe's deep spirituality had the Poles' typical Marian stamp. That's a fine book about Maximilian Kolbe, A Man for Others by Patricia Treese. And there she's giving you kind of what is in this guy's DNA. A devotion to the Catholic faith and to Mary as part of that. There's Mama. Remember Damien last week said he was going to go off and become a missionary, and he wouldn't go if his parents didn't want him to, but God wanted him to, and his parents really didn't want to fight with God over this, did they? That was Kolbe's plan. This is a little different. He was kind of a knucklehead. He tried the patience of his mother so much that she asked, "Raymond, what's ever going to become of you?" That night, I asked the Mother of God, what was to become of me? I took my mother's question seriously. Then Mary came to me holding 2 crowns, one white, the other red. The white and the red, one is for purity, one means you will be a martyr. She asked me if I was willing to accept either of these crowns. The white one meant that I should persevere in purity, and the red, that I should become a martyr. I said that I would accept them both. There he is as a little guy. We saw he got his PhD at 21, first PhD at 21. He was an honors student. He was chosen in the Catholic tradition to go to Rome to study. That's where the brightest and most promising students went. And he contracted tuberculosis, and they thought he would die. And this lung issue is going to affect him for the rest of his life. When he was at the low point of his physical health, he began recruiting members for a spiritual militia. The purpose was to fight for God under Mary's leadership. And this is not military fighting. This is spiritual battles. Founded in October of 1917, and someday you can come back or you can rewind it. I taught a lesson on the apparitions of Mary at Fatima during World War I in Portugal, where 3 little, young, I think the oldest was 11, 9, young little goat herders saw Mary, who said she'd come every month, and she did. And people didn't believe them, but I tend to believe them because they kidnapped the boy, told the 2 girls if they didn't say that this was all made up, they were going to boil him in oil, and took him, this is the police, took him to another room, and they did not change their story. They didn't boil him in oil, thank you. But anyway, it's in that context, at about that time, that Kolbe is founding this group. It's composed mostly of his closest friends, 2 of whom died in 1918 in the flu epidemic. You probably know that what's called the Spanish flu killed more of our soldiers in the First World War and after than the battles did. It's not the Spanish flu. You know why it was called the Spanish flu? The Spanish papers were the only ones that reported it. Everybody else was trying to keep it under wraps. Turns out it probably came from our soldiers who had come from a training camp in Kansas over to France. But be that as it may, it's not a respecter of persons. It kills 2 of Kolbe's closest friends. Now here is the little backstory on this immaculate militia. To fully understand and appreciate the saint, talking about Kolbe, we must see him organizing and founding his life's work, his militia immaculata, the vehicle of all his future conquests for Our Lady. I know this seems strange to us. We would put Jesus everywhere you see Our Lady, but that is not on the Catholic way, and certainly not the Polish way. The event which triggered an immediate need for such a movement of renewal and evangelization occurred in Rome in 1917 during the bicentenary of Freemasonry. The Freemasons were making Rome the theater of their sacrilegious demonstrations. In their hatred of the church, the Catholic Church, I would point out, they marched right up to the doors of St. Peter's, where the Pope was a voluntary prisoner. He had been essentially under siege in there. They displayed their banners, "Satan must reign in the Vatican, the Pope will be his slave." At the same time, they were distributing pamphlets attacking the Church and the Holy Father. Another fine book by Francis Kolbe, Saint of the Immaculata. So this gives you sort of the what ignited his burning desire to come up to found an organization to combat really anti-Catholicism. So here's what he says about that. In the face of such attacks of the enemies of the Church of God, are we to remain inactive? Is that all we can do? Complain and cry? No. Every one of us has a holy obligation to personally hurl back the assaults of the foe. The program of the Militia Immaculata is as simple and as vast as the Church's mission. Its ultimate goal is the conquest of the whole world and each individual soul to the end of time for the Sacred Heart of Jesus through Mary Immaculate. Each member is to give himself entirely to her, to be used as tools in her immaculate hands for the salvation and sanctification of all souls, especially those who are bitter enemies of the Church. The original prayer of Father Maximilian singled out the Masons, but the authorized prayer of the Militia Immaculata today has the broader meaning, enemies of the Church, which includes communists and all other anti-religious groups. So they're praying literally for their enemies. And he says we can't just talk about this among them ourselves. If we do not, and remember this is in the, during and after World War I. If we do not have Catholic media, our shrines will one day be empty. He understands the importance of getting the word out through media. So in January of 22, he begins a publication of a monthly magazine, Night of the Immaculata, prints 5,000 copies. By 1927, they are running 60,000 copies. And they need, that is a picture of the cover page of one of them. They need a place to do this. 5,000 copies you could do in your basement, 60,000, no. And so he founds this city, Niepokalanów, the city of Mary. He wanted it to be near Warsaw because that is the major city, principal railroad line, so he can distribute the material. A wealthy man, prince, donated a tract of property large enough for Kolbe to build what he wanted, 25 miles from Warsaw. The magazine could now reach many more Poles, and the city developed as an international center to send missionaries throughout the world. You can see them all there at work. It is the world's largest monastery. By what year is that? I can't see it.
39.
1939. All right, good. And the press runs of his Knights of the Immaculata publication are now up to 750,000 a month. It's got to be more than the Statesman sells.
Or maybe that's 75,000, because you mentioned 60,000 earlier.
Well, yeah, but that was back in the way back.
Oh.
Yeah, no, we're now, by the time he builds his city, and they have a sawmill because they got to build the buildings, which they did, a carpentry shop, a dairy, and a repair shop for their machinery. I mean, it really is a city. They grew their own food, maintained livestock, chickens, and beehives. So it's its own community. During World War II, it housed wounded soldiers and refugees. There's a picture of it. Many buildings were destroyed by bombing. That is a reconstructed building. After the war, the printing house was reopened, a new church was built, and it is still a popular pilgrimage site. Pope John Paul went there in 1983, calling it a heroic place where St. Maximilian lived. So just stop for a minute and think, this guy's already doing quite a bit for the kingdom. There is a rendering of the layout of the city. There's 130 Franciscan friars living there. They continue publishing, and then they begin Radio Niepokalanów in 1938. They have their own firefighting force. But yeah, they've got a radio station, the whole works. Now, my friend Coco, in 1930, he says, I want another one of these cities on the other side of the world. He goes in to ask his superior, I want to go to the Orient. The guy says, well, where are you going to live? What are you going to do? He says, the Blessed Mother has her plan ready. So he sailed in March to the Far East with the 4 of his Catholic brothers. Wanted to go to China, but the bishop said, not here, buddy. The Bishop of Nagasaki wasn't all that thrilled either. But he learned that Kolbe had 2 doctorates and he needed a philosophy teacher for his seminary. I mean, God works in very, very interesting ways. I mean, when I was finishing seminary and a friend referred me to Regents, they were their athletic director wanted to start a baseball team, and their high school principal wanted to hire a full-time Bible teacher. Those were 2 things I sort of had degrees in. So anyway, I relate to this. And there he is in Japan. A month after arriving, he's passed out 2,000 copies. The circulation of his magazine gets up to 65,000 in Japan. They offered to sell him a better place, a vacant seminary, but he said, nope, better to invest in publications than buildings. Better to get the word out than to have a big fancy building. So he bought a cheap hilly land outside of Nagasaki. It was hidden behind the hills, and that's what I said, remained intact after the rest of Nagasaki was destroyed in August of 1945. His monastery was used to house orphans and became the permanent quarters for 1,000 kids. Coco, you want to tell us a little bit more about Kolbe and Nagasaki, and particularly how they view him today? Now and then, yeah, just speak up. Coco, by the way,
5 minutes.
oh no, you get, Coco was in her mother's tummy in Nagasaki when the bomb fell. And you lost a sister, yes?
Yeah, she lived 1 year.
Yeah, but the radiation was too much. So she knows whereof she speaks. Just give us a little bit about Kolbe and Sam. Good to see you, buddy.
Yeah, I'm so tired to take him here today after 5 years. Today's the first outing.
Oh, and we're so, yeah.
She's happy to come here to help me.
Great.
It was very hard, so my heart is still.
Okay, well, so.
Anyway, I heard the Father Kolbe wanted to come to Nagasaki because he knows the story of our Catholic history.
Yep.
Because about 16th centuries, first public persecution was held in Japan. 26 Christians were crucified on the hill. So this news went to Vatican. So all European Catholic leaders know about the Nagasaki histories. So only Japanese hated Christians, but Europeans really respected these 26 Christians.
Yeah, there is a monument to them today, yeah.
So anyway, that's the reason I thought he wanted to come to see, so to know about people in Nagasaki. And when he arrived in the harbor from the Shanghai, he saw the old Latin stone, which is a French Catholic father built it for the kind of a foreigner at that time. But he wanted to go there to the professor of the philosophy, like you said. But anyway, his heart is of course he wanted to teach Catholicism and the philosophy, but he wanted to involve more Catholic people in Nagasaki. But he is a scholar he's not social person. Like, you know, many PhD are not so social. Like my husband too. And then so he doesn't talk so, according to my friends,
Yeah.
he doesn't talk so much. So he brought to his follower. So these two followers talking for him, and then Father Kolbe printed, make a report to, he's standing in the street, delivered the paper, whatever he created, but the people didn't touch his actions. He was so humble, doesn't talk, but his eyes are full of the affection to Japanese people. At that time, Christian in Japan are so poor, isolated. So Japanese government doesn't take care so much. So Father Kolbe is really kind of a, I have to say, saint.
Yeah, well, and there is a museum there that you have sent me pictures of. Yeah.
I have a domestic helper for me. She came from Catholic, and she said in the Catholic world, if we go in the world, Catholic Church name Father Kolbe's name. So if you go in the many trip in the foreign country, you are going to see his name.
Or you can go to Houston. There is one in Houston. Yeah.
Anyway, for present to this lady, I took her to Japan, my hometown, twice, and then as soon as she went to the Kobe museum, she said to me, with tears, she said to me, I want to serve for this monasteries.
Oh
And then
my.
what she did, she said to me, I have no education. I cannot speak English. I can speak Spanish, but I can do something for these communities. What she did, she said to me, please buy toilet to clean all the stuff. She can clean the toilet. And then there is a very poor condition toilet for the tourists. But so I went to shop with her, and then I brought her to the museum.
Oh.
And then she said she want to come. She doesn't need to go to any such thing. She want to come to clean the toilet every day. So I have to take her to this place every morning until she finishes toilet cleaning.
The man is witnessing to the faith even after
The
death.
reason I want to share this story is this museum is so pure, clean, and holy.
Oh gosh.
You can feel it.
Yeah.
And then Father Kolbe's spirit is still there. His student is Dr. Nagai. He's a medical doctor. He's a patient from atomic bomb. He was dying. He's dying, but he wrote many books, which is very famous in the world. One of that is Bell of
Nagasaki. Yeah.
And then if you have time, you can read. There's in English too. And then Dr. Nagai said he learned from Kobe is we have to start from here. We Nagasaki people not argue or not hate war. We have to start our future from now with hope and love. And he passed away.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I mean, I can't find that in a book. So now he wants to go to India, do the same thing. He wanted 3 of his Neopakalanovs. Goes there, was offered land, a house, a chapel, but things just didn't work out. And due to poor health, he comes back to his city in Poland, where he becomes the Father Superior. Now, here comes the part that a lot of people do know. So yes, there you go, September 1, 1939, Germany invades Poland, starting World War II in Europe. September 5th, his city, Neopakalanov, is bombed. No one is hurt, little damage done, but the civil authorities not the religious order that ran the place, ordered Kolbe to disband the community. 40 brothers refused to leave and stayed with him. September 19th, the resistors, including him, were taken away to an internment camp. In December, oddly enough, on the Feast of the Immaculate Conception, 300 prisoners were sent home by train to Warsaw. Kolbe and his brothers were able to go back to Niepokalanów, and they sought permission from the German authorities to resume publication of their magazine. While waiting for the authorization to print, Kolbe had transformed his publishing monastery into a care center to assist the local population, where they're now at war. There are refugees, people needing food, people needing their carts repaired, and so the city, the fathers do all that for them. Another book about Kolbe I've cited there, Forget Not Love, The Passion of Maximilian Kolbe. After many months, he got the okay to publish one issue of his magazine, The Night. It appeared, not coincidentally, on December the 8th, again, the Feast of the Immaculata. Kolbe wrote one article titled simply, The Truth. And this is a very famous quote from him. No one can alter truth. What we can do and should do is to search for truth and then serve it when we have found it. This is the last thing that he would write.
So what is the truth that he was talking about?
Well, I think under those particular circumstances, the truth that we are meant to be free, Poland was not meant to be overrun by the Nazis. People were not supposed to be told they couldn't practice their faith, all the things that freedom brings. Another author says this about him: in Kolbe's case, he was not only a priest and leader of the Franciscans, but an opinion molder and member of the Polish intelligentsia, as the leader and spirit behind the greatest publishing center in Poland. Just as they had cried out against the anti-church policies of communist Russia, Niepokalanow's publications had deplored Hitler's anti-church and conquest policies. The Nazis ignored the fact that Kolbe himself had never written on anything but spiritual matters, but it is his paper, leaving politics in his publications to lay people. The fact that he was not pro-Hitler and had remarkable power to influence others was more than enough in 1941. You're the leader, you're the publisher of this, they're writing things about us Nazis that we don't like, so he is arrested by the Gestapo in February of 1941, and they tricked somebody into signing a statement of treasonous activities on Kolbe's part. He is then sent ultimately to Auschwitz. Now, pardon me, no pictures here, because these are just recollections of people who were with him on that journey. On the 28th of May, 1941, the SS loaded 320 prisoners from Pawiak into closed boxcars to deport us to Auschwitz. After the SS men had stuffed us into the windowless cars, a lugubrious silence fell. The crowding and lack of air in the car made the atmosphere suffocating, unbearable. Moreover, the knowledge that we were on our way to a concentration camp had everyone sunk in depression. But suddenly, to my surprise and great joy, somebody started singing. I took up the melody, as then did others. I took an interest in who had started the singing and learned that it was Father Maximilian Kolbe, the Franciscan founder of Niepokalanów. Under the influence of Father Maximilian's religious and patriotic songs and narrations, we actually cheered up, forgetting our sad destiny. And from a prisoner who was in Auschwitz before Kolbe got there, because now Kolbe is known. Remember, we've got a Catholic country, we've got a guy that established essentially a Catholic city with a newspaper that gets to 750,000 people. He was known. From mouth to mouth passed the words, "Father Maximilian Kolbe is among us." Men shook their heads. Even him, how cruel those Nazis are. And we wondered what dire things were going on in Poland. At the same time, we were glad to have such a real man, a fighter for truth with us. From another Auschwitz survivor, from the first time I saw Father Maximilian, I was struck by his dignity and calm, so different from others. In spite of the terrible conditions and bad treatment, he never complained, nor did he curse. Instead, he tried to comfort the other prisoners and lift our spirits. One day was especially dreadful for Kolbe, the bloody capo, the head of the work squad, who usually is a fellow prisoner who has been elevated, selected him to be the day's special victim and tortured him as a bird of prey would a hapless mouse. Krot, the capo's name, himself loaded Father Maximilian's back with the heaviest branches. They were digging out trunks and cutting trees. Then ordered him to run. When the priest fell, Krot kicked him mercilessly in the face and stomach. He ordered Kolbe to lie across a stump. Then from among the guards, Krot summoned the strongest and ordered them to give the innocent priest 50 lashes. Afterwards, Father Kolbe couldn't even move, so Krot threw him into the mud, threw the branches on top of him. When it was time to march back to the camp, Father Maximilian was still in such a state that others had to carry him. The next day, he was taken to the camp hospital. For his neighbor, he would do anything and give everything he had. And this is a product of his learning to live on little. The tuberculosis, his illness, was such that he never overdid in terms of eating or drinking. He had learned to live on a little. So he's in Auschwitz where you get almost nothing, and he's giving it away. I recall how in front of the block, Father Maximilian once gave his entire serving of soup to one of the prisoners who was young. "Take it, eat it, you are younger. You at least must live." Another time he wanted to do the same thing, but we wouldn't let him. We forced him to have his share. It's also a fact that sometimes when we had gone to confession to him, we would want to receive communion. This was impossible since Mass couldn't be celebrated. Wishing to symbolize this communion for us, Father would take his own piece of bread, bless it, and give us each a piece. He refused to let us pay him back out of our rations. A prisoner from Kolbe's Block 14A escaped. And the rule was that if someone escaped from your cabin, 10 of those left behind would be executed. That was obviously meant to deter you from leaving in the first place and to make you feel extraordinarily guilty if you were out running around the countryside, free for a moment, but knowing that you had condemned 10 of your fellows to death. So, a prisoner escapes. They take the 600 men from his camp, line them up outside. We stood at attention in the sun, boiling. It's August. Even in Poland, it's hot. From morning until late afternoon, with our only break at noon when we were given our soup ration. Quite a few keeled over and were left lying however they fell. The deputy commander says the fugitive has not been found. In reprisal for your comrade's escape, 10 of you will die by starvation. Next time it will be 20. One of those chosen to die in the starvation bunker, who was not a Jew, who was not a priest, he was a Polish military man, Sergeant Francis Janacek, pleaded to be spared for the sake of his wife and children. You can imagine that, right? You think you're a prisoner of war, which is really what he would have been, and they're going to kill him. And he says, please, I have a wife and a family. Then out of the ranks came a prisoner whom I recognized as Father Kolbe. The servant of God approached Fritsch, the commandant, and in a calm voice declared in German that he wished to die in place of Gajanacek. And here, to me, is a real miracle. If I'm a Nazi, and I'm glad I'm not, I would have said, fine, we'll make it 11. You want to come? Come on. But no. First thing he does is say, come on, man, are you crazy? Father Kolbe clearly repeated his request, saying that his life was, yes, less useful than that of the other man who was the father of a family. Fritsch asked the servant of God, Kolbe, what is your profession? He replied, I am a Catholic priest. After another silence, the commandant gave his consent. There at Auschwitz is a memorial to where he died. The 10 victims walked in front of me. This is a fellow priest who is in Auschwitz. And I saw that Father Kolbe was staggering under the weight of one of the others as he upheld this man who could not walk with his own strength. By some act of God, the prisoner interpreter who would watch Kolbe's last days in the block of death came out of Auschwitz alive. One can only imagine the things he was forced to see. Here, this was a fellow prisoner, but who knew the Polish language and could interpret between German and Polish. Suffice it to say, Bruno Bergovich died on the Monday after Easter in 1947. That's the translator, when he was only about 40 years old. But not before he had written the Epikolanov in December of 45 with many details of what he had seen and left 2 notarized sworn statements of the last days of the man he considered a hero and saint. So the point here is we do have contemporaneous eyewitness accounts of Kolbe's last days. And here's what he writes. The naked victims were in one cell. The foul air was horrible. The cell floor was cement. No furniture except for a bucket for relieving themselves. You could say Father Kolbe's presence in the bunker was necessary for the others. They were in a frenzy over the thoughts of never returning to their homes and families. He pacified them, and they began to resign themselves. With his gift of consolation, he prolonged the lives of the condemned, who were usually so psychologically destroyed that they succumbed in just a few days. He knows they're not going to live, but he is keeping them alive through his kindness. So they could join him, he prayed aloud. The cell doors were made of oak. Because of the silence and acoustics, the voice of Father Kolbe in prayer was diffused to the other cells where it could be heard well. These prisoners joined in. From then on, every day from the cell where these poor souls were joined by the adjoining cells, one heard the recitation of prayers, the rosary, and hymns. Father Kolbe led while the others responded as a group. As these fervent prayers and hymns resounded in all corners of the bunker, I had the impression I was in a church. That is from a movie that has been made. Our interpreter says, one day the SS men in charge of the penal block inspected the cells, ordering me to carry away the corpses of those who had died during the night. I always had to be present for these inspections because, as secretary interpreter, it's my job to write down the numbers of the dead and to translate from Polish into German any conversation or questions asked by the condemned. As the prisoners became weaker, the prayers continued. But even when during each inspection the others were always found lying on the cement, Father Kolbe was still standing or kneeling, his face serene. In this way, 2 weeks went by. The prisoners were dying one after the other. 2 weeks! It's the starvation bunker. That means they're not feeding them. And by this time, only 4 were left. Among them was Father Kolbe, who was still conscious. The SS decided things were taking too long. One day they sent for the German criminal named Bach from the hospital to give the prisoners injections of carbolic acid. Between injection and death was a little more than 10 seconds.
Wow.
This, again, is at Auschwitz. Popes John Paul II and Benedict have made pilgrimages to the cell. And here is the legacy that I mentioned earlier. Our Polish sergeant, whose life was spared, lived another 53 years. And all he did, I assume in addition to making a living of some kind, was to tell the story of what this man had done for him. An apologetic through the mouth of another, based on what Kolbe had done. And there it is. Told you there was one in Houston. In 1994, our Polish sergeant visited St. Maximilian Kolbe Catholic Church in Houston, where he told his translator that so long as he has breath in his lungs, he would consider it his duty to tell people about the heroic act of love by Maximilian Kolbe. Kajanacek died in March of 1995, at the age of 93. He is buried back in the Epikolonov, the city of Mary. That's my favorite picture of Kolbe, because he has a smile. Sort of. Yeah, he does. He does. I told you about the mission of the Catholic Mission Immaculata. Over 3 million members in 48 countries today. And he is the patron saint of drug addicts, political prisoners, families, journalists, prisoners, and the pro-life movement. Pope John Paul declared him the patron saint of our difficult century. Well, question first, yes?
The Pope in Rome during World War II, do you think that the Pope tried or hoped to alleviate any of this dreadful situation that was happening in Germany and Poland? I'm sure he would like to have.
Well, the answer is there is a shelf of books at my home on the issue. There was a book by, I think, John Cornwell that hit the bestseller list 30, 40 years ago called Hitler's Pope. And the thesis of it was that not only did the Pope not do enough, but actually effectively collaborated. There were dozens of Catholic responses to that. I think the fair answer is he legitimately felt that there were Catholics in occupied countries that would have suffered if he had been too active. I think he could have been more vocal. I mean, this is, to the extent the church has a worldwide leader, that's him. And the debate is going to get spurred because he is being considered for sainthood. And I think that's not going to be a smooth process. So there's a lot of back and forth.
What's his name again?
12 past the 12. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
He was still around when I was a child.
There was a Pope Pius, I don't know if it was him, but there was a Pope Pius when I was growing up. Yep. So, well, yes. Go.
Yeah, I like to say one more thing is John Paul came to Nagasaki to honor Kolbe, and then at the museum we have his bone or something like memories, and then what really amazing to me is like you said, his life before his death is more impressive. Because he at concentration camp, he and the Jewish people worship together like an underground church. That is, if Nazis find out, they can torture to the death. But they worship together. And then in Nagasaki, spiritually, he pray a lot on the hill. While he's praying, holy water come out. So after that, many you can go there to drink that. And then the many sick people go there to get this drink. And then still, even today, water is coming.
Yes, yeah, Mike.
One thing that struck me is listening to the whole presentation is the fact that the extreme reverence that Catholics, particularly in Poland, had for Mary. Unbelievable. And because I've read some recent articles by modern scholars who are trying to figure this all out. And one of the interesting things I read in one of the articles was that if you look at the letters of Paul, and Paul, he's a major part of the New Testament. None of those letters ever mentioned Mary or Joseph or any of that. And of course, Paul died before any of the Gospels ever came out. But not one mention of. There was one verse they'd been able to find that Paul wrote that it said Jesus was born of a woman, and that was it.
Yeah, I don't. I think that there's a lot that's been written, complex about why that is. I think there is some element, particularly in Latin America, where the Catholics and the colonialists were one and the same, essentially, and all of the Catholic leadership were male. So I think there is some sense that we need the female aspect of God to be part of our worship and adoration.
I was struck by some of the comments on.
Oh, I mean, it's heavy.
On your slides that they prayed to Mary instead of praying to God.
Yeah, I mean, the proper way to understand that, and I think a good Catholic would tell you this, is we do not believe that it is Mary who's going to answer our prayers. What we believe is that Mary is particularly close to Jesus and to the Father, and just as you might ask me to pray for you if you are not well, I could help you, but not as well as Mary can. So I think their proper explanation is they pray to her to help them with God. I'm not sure they always understand that.
Thanks for a great story.
Oh, well, it's not my story. Yeah.